John Larson comes us off. It's kind of one of the very first Skyraider guys. I'm one of the very last Skyraider pilots. Hook and I went over the same day. We came home the same day, along with this guy, Buck, that he talked about, Buck Buchanan. Now, Buck was a captain, Buck was a first lieutenant, and I was a second lieutenant. And we actually arrived in country in those ranks. And we went in to see the squadron commander. I think it was Lieutenant Colonel Ardavis. Yeah. And he welcomes the three of us, and he kicks the other two out and has me stick around and says, "Son, you're out of uniform. Now get your uniform straight, get it out of the BX and so on your right rank." I said, "No, sir, I'm in the correct rank. I'm a second lieutenant." You can't be in combat and be a second lieutenant. I am. I got another month before I get promoted. I got another month before I have a birthday. I was 22 years old, and I was truly a second lieutenant. And I flew the first 10, 12 combat missions as a second lieutenant. So I was the last lieutenant to fly the airplane. Without a doubt, I'm the youngest guy to ever fly the airplane. Now, as we go to reunion, we lip around and go, I could be the last guy standing.
Hi, you're Brad.
I'm reminded as I listen to Hook and I, like I say, we went home the same day, came home the same day. We both later flew A-7s, we both flew F-16s. Our careers were very, very similar. But I'm reminded as he's going through his stories, the ability to have a memory. My wife will say, what did I wear to church last Sunday? And I'll go, I can't remember. Well, what did I cook for dinner 2 days ago? I can't remember. But ask me 50 years ago about a combat sortie, I can remember every detail. So all I say to the group, and especially the ladies, is it's all about adrenaline. When you're in the combat environment, I'm telling you, the adrenaline flows. You saw the picture where he showed, I was in that picture, and I was a little bit younger, yes sir. And there was Hook and Lance Smith, who was on the far left, retired as a 4-star. There was me in the middle, there was the survivor, John Markle, who actually had been Steve Ritchie's wingman that day. Steve was getting his 4th kill at the same time the MiG snuck up from the rear and shot down his wingman. Now that was the tactic. The tactic in that day was once you got wired in, boom, you went into fighting wing, and the lead was going to get a kill. Wingman is along to keep the lead safe. Well, there's nobody but watching wings. So sure enough, the one dies while the other sneaks up and shot down John Mark. A couple of memories, because I've been on 3 or 4 of those same sorry for Hook talking about. Oleg 02, John Mark, the wingman to Steve Richardson. Bob Carlson. Bob, you and I had launched on that SAR. We were Sandy Lowe and wingman that day. Okay, I'm a second lieutenant. I show up. I become a wingman. So well, you guys are wingmen. You're going through IFF as wingman. And, I mean, you got wings. You're no longer students. I show up and I'm a wingman. And after about 4 or 5 months, I get to check out as a flight lead. And then about the same time you become a flight lead, if you're good enough, you get to actually get into the Sandy role and become a Sandy wingman. I am Bob Carlson's Sandy wingman on the Markle. And we were the first on scene because we were sitting alert that day. But we have 3 radios. And Hook described very well, we're talking an old airplane, you know. The best we have is TACAN. We generally had ADF. GPS ain't been heard of. It is strictly time distance, and when you hack your clock, you know about what speed you're going, and you will follow the map. I mean, it's true map following. And we're going into close to Hanoi. Bob's leading. We got 3 radios, which we use everyone, the UHF, the BHF, and the box night. Box night's between us. The FM's working, and both his other 2 radios go out. Well, you can't talk survivor without the UHF. So Bob calls me on the FM and said, "Thanks, you got to take over the lead." I became a Sandy Lowe that day. So when we came home, guys like Captain Ron Smith, Captain Randy Jane. I need to make the point. Hook kept talking about these names. Randy and Ron and Pizza Man, Buck. These guys were all captains or lieutenants. The whole squadron was full of captains and lieutenants. We kind of lose sight of that. I think our squadron commander, who's not here right now, Jim Hardy, he was actually still a major. Now, he was a lieutenant colonel select, below the zone, 3 took combat tours. When Jim spoke, you listened. I mean, when guys got 3 combat tours and you're a second lieutenant, man, I listened to every word he has to say. But we were a bunch of young guys, captains and lieutenants. So I'm on Bob's wing on Bow Lake 02. We get on scene. He gives me the lead because he's got no radio contact. So I'm actually the first one to talk to Markle. I talked to his backseater standing there smoking a Lucky. I'm going, oh yeah, man, it's just fine. There's just nobody around me. He's the one that ends up getting snatched when we actually pulled Markle out of the jungle. By the time we're ready to do it, we're out of fuel. We head home. We clean wings. I think we hit a train on the way back, I recall. All right. And Hook described the rest of it, but man, the detail he can remember, which most of us can. Another one I do remember was Sandy 7 at Nickel 102. He's a little bit off about, I don't remember Red being there. It was me and I thought it was Mass. Could have been, but it might have been Sights. I was actually on-scene commander over Nickel. After Sandy 7, Heifel had to give it up because he was running out of fuel, and he and Brady took off the wrong direction, went over the Ashall, got shot down. Hook's over there finding him. I'm still working at Nickel 102, but it's getting dark. We're not going to get him out. There's 2 bad guys. Here's a moment I'll never forget in my life. It's kind of like a mullet. When I last talked to the backseater with John Mark, things Marshall or Dalpano later on, and he's captured. And I've never forgotten the fact that I last talked to and we lost to. You just don't, you don't forget that. The Nickel 102, the Navy pilot, he's on the ground. We've been working for quite a while. Heifel's had to go off. He ends up getting shot down over Ashall. I'm still working Nickel 102. And he finally says, they're closing in on me. They're all around me. And we've been making passes. We've been dropping a little bit of CBU here, a little bit of there, all around him. And he finally says, Nip, Sandy, I'm down but 1 bullet. And I'm not going to use it on a bad guy because I'm not getting captured. Now, you got the CBU still on board? I said, you bet, I got a lot. You got to put it right on me. I'll never forget this. He says, look, I'm buried. I'm down under through triple camera. You put her on me, but they're about to capture me, and I'm not getting captured. I mean, I heard him loud there. So I'm in the next pass at about 300 feet over top of spit all those cans of CBU 25 out the back end. Into the old back, it's just pepper spray everywhere. If you do it just right, there's a donut that gets formed right in the very center. You know, as I came off, Nichols says, Sandy, are you still with me? I don't hear you. Nickel 102, Sandy 7. I was 3. What? At a height been set. You still with me? No call. Then I hear this gargled radio. I'm here, Sandy, and you killed them all. Get my ass out of here. Well, it was too dark. We couldn't come in right then, but we went to land and hooked the scrub. We go and land. Those of us who were still around, we landed in Ang, which is only about 50 miles away, and we built a plan. And it's the 4 of us. One, Hook has seen, he knows where Heifel is. Heifel's nickname was Gabby, remember? Because Gabby never said a word. He was the quietest guy I've ever seen water. Hey, Brandon, you call him Gabby. Are you still there? No, you can't nod your head. You got to answer the radio. That was a guess. Well, we picked up Gabby that next morning, and we went right over, and we chased Lee's, and I led, and we picked up Nickel. And we came back, landed in the angle. I'll tell you, grown me and cry. Stay on a quiet line. And you pluck a guy out of potential prison or death. But that's what we do. That's what we do in America to fight. We take care of our own. We don't leave anybody behind. And that's the experience we had 50 years ago. And you're going to have that experience. It's going to be more modern. It's going to be better technology. And so that's one reason you see a bunch of old farts who gather. We tell stories. And probably the stories get a little bit bigger.
I mean, postcards because we love one another.
We do. That's exactly right.
It may not be true, but that's the way I remember it. That's all I care.
I'll tell you one last story between Hook and I, because we had quite a rivalry over there together, going over the same day, going on the same day. We both kind of stepped through wingman and flight lead, and then Sandy low status. And we saw, he showed you the picture, and I've got a couple of those pictures of our Saudi flight, the last day, October 1st. And we got some nice pictures going in, and the sunset setting on the way back. What a great picture that is. And then Buck and Hook go off on a week or so of vacation. They go to Chiang Mai and Bangkok, and I hung around Squadron. See, if Jim Harding's here, I would need to tell a story about it as our squadron commander. I came back from leave in March or April. I went home for 2 weeks, and then the Easter was out. Yeah, Tet Offensive started. And I said, man, I'm missing out. I got to get back. So they need me. So I got back, and shortly after I got back, Harding, the squadron commander, calls me in. He says, Brown, I need you to take on a job. It's up at the wing, and it's to go be the DO's exec. I'm a lieutenant, you know. I'm not one of these go fly sorties every day. This is a lesson for you guys in the back. I said, sir, I don't want to do that. I just said, yeah, I know you don't. The DO was a full colonel. I mean, a full colonel, it's like God, isn't it? Well, and out of wearing jump doobie, there's God there. Okay. This guy, and he's not a, in fact, the top three at NKP in the first wing were, there was a nail driver, a W10 pilot, a 119 pilot, AC1. We had no A1 representation. Our wing commander had been a A1 pilot, and he PCS, a new one came in, and he was a net pilot. So Hardy goes, we need some experienced people at the wing level that can talk Skyraider. So Brown, and the DO is old Colonel Grastrol is his name. He needs an exec. I need you to go be his exec. Oh, sir, please don't do that. He says, here's what I'll commit to you. If you'll go be the exec, you will sit Sandy alert, because you could cop the airplane on, you can go push papers for the colonel and be our representative up there. And if you scramble, you scramble. Everybody understands that. But you won't even sit hobo lines anymore, which is the normal go, do, strike, closer. It was sit the Sandy line. So I did nothing but Sandy alert my last 5 months. Best thing ever happened. All I flew were SARMIS. Lasted 5 months I was there. I ended up on 13 successful rescues. It was all about then Lieutenant Colonel Harding saying, Brown, I need you to do this job. And I thought it was the worst job I could get. You know, whatever you do it to the best of your ability. I mean, I can go through all your core values. But it ended up working out great for me. All right, let me talk just a moment. Gary asked me to talk about 911. I was in the building on 911. Get me else here.
I'm 9/11.
You were 9/11.
9/11.
9/11. 9/11. Yeah, that's September 11th, 2001. 20 years ago. You know, we were 50 years ago. Now I'm going to go to 20 years ago. It changed our nation. There's no doubt about that. I've been here at Reno. I've been commanding a personnel center. Been doing that about a year and a half. I was planning on retiring here. I was at my second job as a two-star, so I was going to retire right here. Saying we were already looking at property. We were looking, you know, where we're going to live and what school my son would go to. And my boss, who happens to be the DP of the Air Force, we call it today the A-1, but it was the Director of Deputy Chief Staff Personnel, was Don Peterson, Peto. Great Aggie, great guy, great boss, especially 1,500 miles away. Yeah, command and living in Texas and be at 1,500 miles away from the Pentagon, that's a pretty good, you can't be flying airplanes. That's pretty good stuff. If you ever get a chance to command personnel center, I recommend you do it. It's really a good job. The boss called who says the new secretary and the current chief of staff have earmarked you to come take my place so I can retire. I said, that means coming to the Pentagon. I don't want your job. I'm not interested. I said, Brown, this isn't a democracy. You need to come up here and interview with the new Secretary of the Air Force, who happened to be that guy from the Navy. You remember? Secretary Roach. Yeah. I became pretty close friends with Roach. Well, I got hired to be the VP of the Air Force. And I arrived in August of 2001 from right here at Bramwell. Pinned on the third star and went become the DP. And I know very little about personnel. I didn't know much about personnel when I came here. It's not about being a personnel, it's about being the leader. Just being the guy in charge. I had plenty of expert personnel. Well, the same sort of thing up there. I had lunch on September 10th with all the other personnel chiefs in all the services. So there was some lunch, and I don't even remember what the affair was, but there's the chief of staff of personnel from the Marines and the Navy and the Army and the Joint Staff. We were all sitting at the same table, and we were honoring somebody, whatever it was. The point is, the guy sitting right beside me was Lieutenant General Tim Maud, Deputy Chief Staff, Personnel, United States Army. He's the ranking guy killed the very next morning in the Pentagon. I'm in a meeting at 8:30 on that Tuesday morning in the basement of the Pentagon where the Air Force Ops Center is, and it's where the chief and the secretary hold typically a weekly staff meeting, sometimes more often, but it's almost always every Tuesday morning. And who's chairing the meeting? The secretary and the chief. The chief's the brand new chief of the Air Force. John Jumper has just taken over literally the day before. We had a change of command. We had a big ceremony in retirement for Mike Bryan on Friday. Jumper's the chief as of Monday. He wasn't even at work on Monday. He actually was at the air house accepting household goods and trying to act like, setting example that's what we all should do is help our wives accept household goods. I struck him to the blade, but that doesn't matter. He was there. So his first day at work is Tuesday morning, September 11th. And we all staff meeting. So guess who shows up? Everybody. Every general officer in the Air Force that's in the Pentagon is in that staff meeting because here's the brand new chief. He's going to, I'm sure, pontificate and give us some great words of wisdom or something, Actually, Jumper, he's not into pontification. He was an ops guy. I mean, he was let's go for guns and let's go who we're going to kill today. So we're all excited to meet Jumper and be there for his first day. And it's about 8:45. We're 15 minutes into the briefing, and we're in the big ops center. There's 3 huge slides up, and some airman, he opens the door, he comes running down and whispers in the ear of the chief and the secretary, both sitting right here. And Jumper goes, put it on the screen. We don't know what he's talking about. And what do they put up? They take down all the slides, and that goes to first town. And we're sitting there watching smoke from the tower and the commentators talking about weather or navigation error. Now I'm in a room full of Air Force senior leadership. Probably 40 of us in that room. 35 of us have wings on our chests. And we've all been around the block a couple of times. And within a couple of minutes, we watched the second airplane. So some of you are watching TVs at those points. Many of you weren't. We watching a TV. If you're in Texas, it's now 7:30 in the morning, whatever it was. Well, we all, within a few minutes, it's clear what's going on. It's in that room that the actual decision is made to take every airplane down out of the skies and launch whatever we could get airborne as a military force, but get every airline grounded. That call is made to the SecDef, who calls the president, and the decision was made, and we started seeing across our nation airplanes being told land as soon as possible, wherever, you could get land. And we stopped other launches from taking off. There were still plenty of airplanes that were still airborne. And we all know the story after that. There's obviously 2 more airplanes that were destined for attack. And maybe more, but we don't know because maybe they never got launched. It's not too long after that the airplane goes down in Pennsylvania, or we get hit first. I'm not sure, Hunter. I guess we got hit. My task is to do an accountability, a recall roster for the entire Air Force. We can do that. It's not easy, but you start your commands that go to the NAFs, that go to the wings, that go to the and eventually we will do an accountability of every airman in our. And the question was, do we happen to have anybody in New York? We didn't think so, but no. So we ran. I had a task, and that was an accountability for every airman in the Air Force. The ops guy had a task, and that was, what can we get airborne? We got the National Guard and the Air Force Reserve commanders both right there, Air National Guard, and they got airplanes airborne before we active duty did. We had nobody setting alert, not by this time. We quit setting alert shortly after the end of the wall coming down and after the end of Rocky Freedom, or so just sit around with live missiles, guns. That's not that we are anymore. We had been for many, many years. So we all know the story of the airplanes launching out of Massachusetts over New York, the ones out of the D.C. Guard that launched to come over the top of us and D.C., and some of those were unarmed. You know about the squadron commander and his female wingman who had unarmed F-16s and prepared, if need be, run into, ram, take an engine off or take a tail up of an airplane before it was going to be allowed to come back in and kind of turn. Well, that was the situation. Say about 9 o'clock, 9:15, we all head back to I've got a staff meeting. It normally happened at 9:30. I went ahead and let that staff meeting start. I want a video Zoom with for my replacement, Mike McMahon, who is the commander here of Radio Personnel Center. And at 9:36, while I'm sitting there talking to him on Zoom, my staff's in our staff meeting, we feel attack. We feel 2 explosions. We know now the attack occurred about between 4 and 5 corridor. The airplane entered. That was the first explosion. About a second or 2 later, there was another major explosion. It had to be the fuel cell. My office was around the 200 corridor, quite a bit of ways from where, if you've been in the Pentagon, you got the SecDef and the chairman are down on the 2nd floor, right there at the river entrance. That's what she is. SecDef, the chairman's on the 2nd floor, SecDef's on the 3rd floor. Oh yeah, Chief Staff of the Air Force is on the 4th floor, right above the, that's how it should be, yeah. Air Force sits right above. Okay, I wouldn't say that in another ground. It's right above the chairman and SecDef. I know Rumsfeld's our SecDef. He stays in a building, I'm going to man the ship. Well, he's 500 yards from the entry point. I got to tell you, he probably didn't even feel it over there in that bar end. But you make your way around, and my office is probably 75 yards from each other. And we felt, whole plate, building rumble, 2 explosions, all the lights go off. The video Zoom flashes off for a second, comes back up, and the first thing that said, Mike McMahon, the 2-star, who's center commander, goes, what just happened? He could tell something occurred where we are. He could tell it right here in San Antonio. I said, we just got attacked. The way it got my mind. I said, everybody get out. Knock all the doors open, push everybody out. Let's go away. Head to the river bridge. I'll meet you all out in the river bridges. And I look at the video and tell Mike, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where we are. But right now, you're in charge of the Air Force. We may be under. I don't know what the ops center looks like, but I know you're alive and well. And so start the accountability. You got this I gave him the stick. I said, you cut the stick. You're running the Air Force until you hear different from somebody else. You hear from the opposite, try to get all of the Air Force Op Center, see what their status is. Took me maybe 20 seconds. And then I looked around and there wasn't a person in the room. Man, they never followed their orders quite. Amazing. How fast I got out of that room. And so I'm looking at, here I was the brand new guy. Okay, I'm the 3-star, but still. And I got this panel. I don't know how to turn the thing on. Somebody's always done that for me. I'm pushing buttons, nothing. I said, Mike, turn it off, you're in, I'm out of here. I got in the hallway and there's a young captain standing there and he's kind of shaking. He said, sir, they told me to wait for you. We got to get out of here. I said, stay calm. Stay calm. Now, there wasn't a bunch of fire. There was some smoke. There wasn't, full fireball you see in the movie. I'm still here. So I thought I'd across the hallway, get my keys, my wallet, my hat. So, sitting on my desk. Now, I'm on the E-ring, so, I got pretty nice on this. And we head toward the river, and we're pushing door. And truly, there was nobody there. Everybody was out. I go out the river entrance, and I'll tell you what I find, and this says something about our military, too. It was very ordered. I mean, there wasn't yelling and screaming and running. I mean, it was an orderly evacuation of Pentagon. But I get outside, and there's 22,000 of all my best friends, all standing out there like this. I better call my wife. This split plum days, you heard? Well, for 4 hours, I couldn't get through to my wife. So, lesson to learn for me, maybe I should have picked up the hard line right there. Hey, I'm okay. I'm going outside. We stood out for a while. They pushed us away from the building. There was a talk on radios of another airplane, which ended up being the Pennsylvania airplane. Concerned about airplane number 2 coming to the Pentagon, which, in my opinion, that's probably where it was headed. I think the bad guys had a redundancy built in. If the one failed, the second will do it. That was on the towers, and they had 2 planned for Pentagon. White House, no way. You couldn't find the White House. Maybe with today's technology, you guys could, but not some yo-yo 30 hours in the airplane that I just learned how to fly an airplane. No. Now the Hill, the Capitol. Oh no, that's a real lot, though. That's all speculation. The other thing I'm going to tell you about is there were people asked, are there medics? Are there people, doctors? And they were kind of gathered, brought back inside the back end of the building, gone into the court, depending on the whole center of the courtyard. And so the rescue efforts were started and pulling people into the courtyard where the airplane entered. It came through E ring, D ring, C ring, B, and he stopped right about A. It destroyed about 10% of the building. Now, 23,000 people worked in the Pentagon. On any given day, 10% probably should have been injured or killed. That'd be about 2,300. We know that 120 killed, plus those on the airplane. They happened to attack the most brand new renovated part of the building. The building was on a 10-year renovation plan, and every 2 years, another 1/5 of the building was going to be completed, and they were just finished. Corridors 4 and 5. The suppression systems were brand new. All the sprinkler systems were brand new. Half the rooms weren't even occupied yet because the contractor hadn't given them back over. That's why there were so few people in that part of the building. It wasn't about how many they killed, and it was about, could an enemy attack our country? That's what it's all about. But we were fortunate and blessed that it was so few people. At one point, I remember I'm in with most of my personnel folks, and we keep pushing further away, and there's all kind of just groups and groups of people. And SP is running through saying, they're looking for general officers because they had a helicopter. They were going to get all the generals in a helicopter and take them away. And so they find me, sir, you need to go. I said, I'm not going away. What are you talking about? We need to collect all the generals so that, yeah. How about all my people here? Well, mine, sir, we're caravan. I said, take your other generals and go somewhere else. I'm not leaving. You know, I don't know if it's an Army thing, maybe. That wasn't the Air Force. So. Last story I'll tell you from that experience, Frank Dell. I had a really close friend. His name was Van Antwerp, and we were in actually a flight officer Bible study. They're in the Pentagon. I know, yeah, it really does exist. It's 6 a.m, so it's not on, taxpayer hours. So we meet once a week, and it was great because we were various services. I actually got to know some Army generals who were pretty good guys. And one of them was this guy, Van Antwerp, and he's a civil engineer for the United States Army. And his office was next door to Tim Maher. They had adjoining offices on the E-ring. He happened to call an off-site one day, let's do an annual, we got to get our Sierra together as a staff. And so he had an off-site plan with most of his staff, and they were not in the building that morning. His secretary was. She was killed. His exec was. His exec was a Lieutenant Colonel Brian Birdwell. And if you're a Texan, you may know that name. Because today, Brian Birdwell is a Texas state senator out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And awesome guy. And a great representative for our state. Well, Brian Birdwell was in the office, but he had gone down to the men's room. And he'd gone down to the V-ring men's room, so pretty far interior. And as he's literally starting to push the door open to the men's room to walk out of the hallway, was 937. And that's when the airplane hit. And he just looks and he tells, he's just stepped out, and here's the fireball coming down now. I guess Arnold Schwarzenegger, he could turn and run away from fireballs. Ron says, that doesn't happen. Bang. It just literally knocked him to the ground. And he's laid flat on the ground, and he's burning up. And he's a strong believer, working for Van Antwerp, who was a great Christian guy. And he even said, right then, I said, all right, Jesus, I'm coming to meet you. I barely leave my family. And he said something told him to roll over. So he rolls over, and a sprinkler breaks open right then, right above. This brand new part of this, it probably didn't exist here before. And he starts getting soaked. He rolls over again, he gets soaked on both sides. Now he's pretty burned, but he's alive. And it takes, he's not sure how long. Turns out it's about 15 minutes, according to his rescuers, where they find him and get to him. And they drag him out, what's left of him. They put him in the burns. He's probably the most severely burned person that lived through the experience of 911 in the Pentagon. Now, there were others that were burned, but he's third degree, almost his entire life. He's at the Washington Burn Center. And I want to say it's day 3, maybe 2, maybe 3 or 4 out here. President Bush and Laura, they come walking in, no cameras, no media, no reporters. And they just go from bed. Brian's wife standing there with him. They're kind of shocked when the President of the United States are. And the President goes to Brian into his bed and gives him a salute. And she has to help get his arm up to curtains. President Bush was the best president we ever had. But he's a man with that time when we needed the right.
Unknown caller.
And he was the guy we needed in charge, who understood the military, would take advice, wanted it and took it, and then said, all right, now we're going to get our country back together, spring in action. I got to watch him throw out a pitch. I hope, and there's a video, you can go look it up. He throws out a pitch at, I think it's the third World Series game. You know, baseball stopped and it came back again. And Piazza hits a home run in New York, and the first game back in New York, it's a big deal. Third game of the World Series, Bush is invited to throw out the pitch. It's the Yanks and Diamondbacks. It is the Diamondbacks. It's right. And go watch it. Go call up because he goes in where the umpires are, and he greets them all, and he's signing balls. He's, man, I got to throw a good pitch. I can't just throw it there. And he meets Jeter, and Derek Jeter says to him, "My friend, it's so great to meet you. Don't throw the dirt." I wasn't feeling pressure till the great Derek Jeter told me, "Don't throw it there. You got to hit the captain." Go watch that video because and it's symbolic. They're in Yankee Stadium, and of all places, it's New York. And America rallies, and you hear the chants of USA. And I mean, whether they voted for Bush or not, they didn't care right then. He was our president. I mean, that's the feeling we got to get back. We got to get back that feeling in our country today. That's my experience and our stories from 20 years ago now. Just as last month. So thanks.